collective power is such a necessity because how oppression works and how colonialism works. You can't do anything like alone ever. You're always going to need to depend on other people, especially if you're like fighting back against the system.
Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Re-Membering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Thank you for participating in the Black Appalachian Coalition podcast. I would like you to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what is your Appalachian story.
Awesome. Yeah, my name is Pheonix Berry. Who I am and what my Appalachian story is. I really had to think about this one because I feel like at the core, I am an organizer who wants to see the world become a better place and be participatory in that change, while also advocating for, self-growth, self-love, and self-resilience. I feel like Appalachian history and culture has played a lot into that, even just learning about organizing, because even though I was born here, I've lived most of my life in like the Northeast and in the West Coast. So I've learned a lot about what organizing means to me as a person. But I feel like when it comes to, community and being able to coexist with nature and being able to listen to earth and being able to incorporate that with community has really evolved my organizing capacity and skills.
That is great to hear. Coming from a naturopath background, it's important that we honor the earth and do what we can to protect it. And your organizing work sounds very phenomenal. So we're very glad to have you to tell us what your thoughts were about the Black Policy Summit and what did it bring up for you and what did you enjoy and what would you like to see next year?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I had so much fun and I learned more about myself, but also that there's other organizers who kind of have and are still going through the same plight that I'm going through, especially on the journey of self-healing, especially as like a Black community, in really close proximity to one another, being able to like help each other heal instead of letting colonialism and just other forces keeping us individualized. I feel like that's something that I really learned from the summit. But also, I feel like the best part for me was when we went to Simmons College. I feel like I learned a lot about HBCU history in Kentucky, and also just listening to the speakers and then doing the workshops really helped me be able to kind of solidify what type of organizing that I want to do and like how to make relations, storytelling, and just all these other parts that were very critical to me growing as an organizer. It's so amazing. I love it. And I can't wait to see the next one because I know it's going to be amazing.
Thank you so much. I know there was a lot of work put into the Kentucky Policy Summit, and I actually had a great experience. It was a pleasure meeting you and so many others. Like you said, we realize that we're not alone in this, and we also have to maintain balance and heal ourselves as we do this work. That's a good point to bring up. One of the things that is in our Black Policy Summit booklet. There were some questions, and we weren't able to get through all of those while at the summit. So I thought I'd bring some up and see what you felt about them. So when do you feel most empowered in your organizing work?
I feel most empowered when I'm able to build community, but then also whenever I'm able to actually help someone. I feel like a huge part of my organizing is also like mutual aid alongside with working with, the environment and cultural aspects. I also feel like mutual aid really empowers me because it lets me know that I can be vulnerable in a community and that a community can be vulnerable with me. And while I may not have tons of resources or exactly what the resource that that person needs, I know of another person or of another org that's like able to help them. And it's just something that just feels so beautiful and just empowering.
Yes, I definitely agree. When we're able to give somebody their needs and support them with having resource information, it does empower us. And we're very grateful that you're doing this work. What is the collective power that we have to disrupt systems of oppression? What do you feel that you learned in the summit? How your work allows you to use collective power to disrupt these systems of oppression?
I feel like I really love this question because I feel like collective power is such a necessity because how oppression works and how colonialism works. You can't do anything like alone ever. You're always going to need to depend on other people, especially if you're like fighting back against the systems and stuff like that. I feel like by using collective power, people are able to use what's unique to them, basically has their own little superpower, if that makes sense. And being able to, connect with others. It's like an art piece, if that makes sense. Like, you have like the flower here, or you have a little cloud here, or you have like a little raindrop here that like, if you're, looking far away, you probably can't see it. But if you're up close and inspecting the art piece, you can see it. Like, that's kind of how I see collective power, especially in organizing.
Yes, and I know that's why you do such phenomenal organizing work. And what about the uncovering of truths can help guide better policy and practice making? We talked about that at the summit, but as well, I'm sure you're familiar with the issues arising with not wanting to tell true history.
I'm a person that likes to operate on radical honesty because when it comes to honesty and truths, I feel like we live in a world now where people aren't direct and, like you said, just kind of like scared to uncover those truths. But we have to be honest and we have to uncover truths, even if it's uncomfortable truths, because how else are we supposed to grow as like humanity? I believe that the world has been literally repeating cycles. For me, I went to public school. So like a lot of the education that I learned was really like, a white perspective or a perspective that wasn't authentic to like my history. And as I got older and started reading more and more and learning about people like Huey P. Newton and reading books like Revolutionary Suicide made me realize that there's a whole lot of stuff that we don't know. And the more that we learn it, the more that we're able to fight back because like our oppressors want us to thrive in this lack of knowledge because it's like, if you learn certain things, it's going to upset you. And when you get upset, you have to use that anger, that passion into creating like not a different reality, but a reality that is more comfortable to live in, if that makes sense. I just think that,
Absolutely. You make perfect sense all the time, all the time. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You can
no, you're
carry on.
fine.
Yeah.
I just think that, uncovering truths are just like, it's pivotal when it comes to organizing. And I think that plays another role into accountability too, to be honest, because there's a lot of people that like they learn truths or you learn truths. And it's when you make mistakes, you have to be open to being wrong, especially in organizing spaces, because I feel like colonialism and our oppressors just want us to all be like, okay, so we're hurting each other, doing a constant cycle of hurting each other, but not being accountable to the fact that we're hurting one another and being able to like actually be like, hey, this hurt. Can you not do that? And then another person being like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And then not be like, not offended per se, but I just don't think it's necessarily in our culture to be like direct when truths are uncovered, especially if it's something that harms another person, or even if it's something that is really beneficial. But if someone doesn't like it, or if people can be kind of critical, I just think there's so much that goes into it. But I really think the biggest things is accountability and vulnerability too.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the areas that we're just starting to uncover with the Environmental Justice House, our vulnerabilities and what we need to express as we do uncover these truths and create better policies and practices for the future. And as a young person, I would just like to hear from you about your thoughts on Project 2025 and the current election. What is on your radar as the young person in our community right now? What do you hear from others, and what would you like to share to maybe inspire other youths who are listening to our podcast?
I'm a person that tries to keep this balance between being like chronically online, but like also like chronically in the community, which is a huge balance to be able to have to navigate. But also at the same time, I feel like I'm learning so much about the political climate right now. Number one, what I will say is Project 2025 is insane. Forgot what quote it was. If there was a quote in The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, how she talks about history repeats itself and how the oppressors will always try to find ways to keep people oppressed, and how it basically went from like slavery to Jim Crow to now prison incarceration and stuff like that. I feel like because there's, so much push for like prison reform, people that are incarcerated to be able to basically have rights because they don't, quite frankly, which really sucks. I feel like Project 2025 is their avenue to try to be like, okay, well, this is how we can still keep our power as people that are oppressing others. But I think more and more people are starting to be aware of what is going on and the cycles that are happening and wanting to put a stop towards it. And I think that's where I've kind of been at, because with the presidential election, my personal opinions is that I feel like I want to vote for Kamala, but also at the same time, with everything that's going on in Palestine, I recognize that when it comes to both parties of the government, they're all funded by like the same people, and they all still want to hurt innocent people. So it makes it kind of frustrating when it's like, do I vote third party? Do I vote for Kamala? Also, at the same time, I'm starting to learn that there's way more power in me doing local stuff and putting a lot of pressure on like local governments and state governments, because I feel like I have more of a chance to be heard. And also, I recognize that a lot of people that are in my generation as well, like we are really, really affected by what's going on in Palestine. And I don't speak for all of my generation, but at least the people that like I'm in communication with, everything that's going on in Palestine is really messed up. And we're trying to figure out ways that like what little power, quote unquote, that we have to be able to make sure that people aren't getting killed anymore. Because in my personal opinion, everything that they're doing in Palestine is stuff they could be doing to us if we're under Project 2025, trying to find this balance of knowing that both political parties are kind of just, they're different wings of the same bird, trying to figure out how to make changes to the system, but also feeling like you don't have a lot of that power or knowledge. And I think that's why organizing is so important. Just getting out in the community, just to know that there's other people that feel like you, like more than just online. Like if you go out in your communities, and everywhere costs money now because of late stage capitalism, but if you go to third spaces like parks and libraries and continue to have conversations and being able to actually implement like, well, this is what changes we want to make. I feel like personally we'll be able to make more change that way. Not saying that the candidates part isn't important because it is when it comes to like local and state, but when it comes to the federal, I just feel like it's so hard and it's really upsetting.
I can definitely identify with you on that because I was educated in high school in Northern Virginia. I was always allowed to vote as an independent. And it wasn't until I returned to Pittsburgh going to college and found out that I had to choose one or the other of the two parties. And it was discouraging. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Pennsylvania has that. They're always in that swing state issue because they try to control the vote still, and like you said, it's history repeating itself because it's denying us our rights to vote how we want, when we want to.
Exactly. And that's another thing too. It's like, it's just another form of voter suppression. I did the Summer Policy Institute and I remember talking to some of the legislators and they're like, well, yeah, like we don't make a lot of money, but I'm like, yeah, but you get a lot of donations. That definitely impacts what policies that you're going to argue for and vote against and, vote for and all these different things. I don't know. I just feel like it's so prevalent in our system to just allow these things and we shouldn't. We're all being suppressed by our votes, especially it's like now it's just so prevalent. I'm interested in seeing like what's going to happen next because I really just hope that people are able to actively garner community with one another to recognize how much more powerful it is to be in your community and to have your voice and decisions be heard and respected and to actually see it and not just like basically shouting into a void, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Most everything you say has made perfect sense. And we're so glad that you were able to share your experience with the Black Policy Summit and the work that you do. And we're just hopefully hoping that you will continue to work with us, join us, and keep doing the work that you're doing and encourage us to support you in any ways that we can.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love you all so much. You all like have literally changed my life and given me so much more things to really reflect on. And I really brought a lot of the stuff that I learned like back home and instantly started to implement it into my communities, especially when it comes around reproductive justice as well.
Absolutely. And that's vital in this moment in time. So we thank you. Continue with us. If you're interested, you can always check in and share, and we can do a podcast on some issues or something that you're facing that you'd like to bring attention to. We're all about amplifying the voices of Black and Brown in the Appalachian region. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.